The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
All right, man. Well, here we are again on the My Backstory podcast with Jeff Nichols. I'm super pumped to have you on. I don't know if you knew why I decided to do this 12-part podcast series, but just a little background. A friend of mine, Rory Hamill, who was on the podcast as well, lost his battle to his demons, his inner demons. And I was crushed, man, to be honest with you. I was really, really heartbroken by it. You become a friend, once I have these people on my podcast, you get kind of close to them, you're vested in their lives and they're vested in yours. And it was a sad thing, to know that he has 3 kids and he was going around helping all these other veterans. And so I was shocked by wow, how did this happen? I was almost in disbelief. So I felt like a calling to really get more involved with helping people talk about mental health, because I think a lot of us, or for society as a whole, I think there's a big stigma surrounding it. A lot of people don't really discuss it too much, or they're afraid to talk about it. So the first thing I want to ask you, Jeff, is how are you doing?
All relative, right? It's interesting because I have, for the record, for sure, I have zero apprehension to talk about my mental illness that I've had and I will always have, I'm sure, in the sense of, there's a lot, there's so many life experiences that so many of us have encountered that have shaped these belief systems, these fractured ideals, these ideologies, these things that we find ourselves gravitating towards, and these titles. And me filtering through that has been a real struggle. But fortunately for me, I have found a lot of people in my life that have given me real guidance, not like the, call it the fortune cookie sort of statement of you're going to have great days ahead. Not to a point, especially with so many people. There's jets flying over right now. So there's so many people that are legitimately trying to find that path. So can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So F-18s are flying right over my house. So the deal is I'd make it akin to this and say I'm doing good. And the reason why I'm doing good is because the military is a great example in kind of, if I may for a minute, you get to a point where the things that we learn and then what we're taught in our jobs, in our military, are very finite, right? They're not, it's some, you go to boot camp, it's just general and broad. The longer you spend in the military, and especially if you start going down the special forces world, you get more and more finite on the process. And when we leave that process, man, there's nothing finite about trying to really decide, seek out, what am I feeling? How does it make me feel? And how am I reacting to these emotions? There's nothing finite about that. And when you try to find help, it seems to me there's not a lot of finite help, because to be quite honest with you, most people don't give a darn. They really don't. And that's okay. But I think that a lot of them not giving a darn is rooted in they don't really understand. Because there's a lot of people out there that are trying to, I'm throwing up air quotes here, want to help, but they themselves are not equipped to help. And it's unfortunate that you're seeing that with some veterans that are helping people, air quotes again, but they themselves don't even know how to apply that to their lives. And fortunately for me, I found conduits that have been extraordinarily helpful, really finite and helpful. And it took me to be very vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. With some of those things, and I'm so thankful that I have.
Right. How many guys do you think, guys and girls in the military, especially in the special operations community, are suffering unnecessarily, because they either A, don't want to bring it up, or they're compartmentalizing, or, do you think it's a large majority of people that are suffering with mental health issues?
Without being dramatic, I would say in the 90s. Wow. There are very few people but again, you just never know what's going on behind closed doors. And that really is kind of the real shocking nature of mental illness as well. I would say that in their own right, some people deal with it better than others because they really have learned things to be creative and keep their minds attached to things that don't completely lock them into this ideological dogma that the military necessarily creates. And I mean that, like, at no point in time is the fault of these guys killing themselves, honestly. I don't put any blame on our military. I just don't. You can't, because the job that we are being taught to do, asked to do, whatever it may be, you need to have that side of very finite, aggressive ideological training. You need it, right? What I call brainwashing, conditioning, stress inoculation, whatever you want to call it. I think that what we've lost as a culture, especially the American culture, is saying, hey, it's for you all to go down this path of, as a warrior, as a soldier, as a Marine, as a sailor, whatever it may be, to think that there is not going to be an after effect is incredibly ignorant. And we have to get them early. And it's not a scare tactic. It's like, hey, you're joining the military in a time of war, like our generation, yours and my generation. They joined. There was not a draft. Every single human being, male and female, that joined the military service in our generation joined in a time of war. There is an after effect to that. There always has been an after effect to that from every single war prior. And there will be an after effect to that for every single war after. And it doesn't make our soldiers, sailors, and Marines weak by saying that at boot camp and reiterating that. But the problem is you have this bravado. You have all these people out there that are just saying, go out there and do that and don't be a pussy and da-da-da-da. And I don't mean that to say to say that people saying that are wrong, right? But what I'm saying is everyone has demons, and it's okay. So it's so okay, because that's what makes us human. That's what makes us be. That's what allows us to be really great humans, not just good soldiers, sailors, and Marines. Like it. That's what humanity is. Like we should be there for each other. And even the veteran population, you've got this rift. Like the idea of veteran owned or veteran this has become, in my eyes, it's been the same thing as like, are you Democrat or Republican? You're a veteran or you're not. Do you understand or you don't? Right? And then people, it's like trading cards. People are comparing the level of deficiency of, I sleep less than you, or I'm 70% disabled. Well, I'm 100%. It's like, we're all screwed up. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Yeah. And I think that we've gotten to the point where, for some reason, we think we've learned, whatever it may be, our life experience are telling us that it's not okay to have these traumas. And it's totally okay. It sucks. There's a lot of people out there that are figuring this stuff out. And, you know, it's really, really sad, because I'm one of the fortunate ones. You know, call it survival's guilt, if you will, but it's like, man, I wish I could share what I feel in my heart to other veterans, because I've rooted so much belief and faith in who I am as a person that has nothing to do with our military, has nothing to do with my veteran status, has the fact that I'm a compassionate human being now, and I really care.
Right. Have you ever in your life, after the military or even before, contemplated suicide?
Yeah, I did. I totally did. So a couple of years ago, March. Yeah. So it was just one of those things that, man, it's very surprising to me that, like, there was a time in I didn't understand how someone could ever get to that point. It was like, I remember actually having that thought in my head. I was still active, and I was hearing and seeing veterans getting out and getting struggling. I was like, I couldn't relate to that. That was my ego. Like, I was just like, I was so compartmentalized with like disassociating because the ideology of the community that I attached to. It's not the community's fault. It's my personal decision to wrap myself in this emotional armor, because I wasn't capable of looking myself in the eyes and going, hey, there's a real chance that you're going to get screwed up after this emotionally. But that's part of the process. So when I finally got to the point where I could no longer making excuses, because I was losing all of my close friends. I couldn't keep a relationship. I was a terrible father compared to my capacity to be a good father. And I literally couldn't look at myself in the face anymore. And I just really thought, like, there's this I can't take anymore. The weight of that emotional burden, I couldn't, because I didn't feel like anyone could relate. Right? That's a real hard thing that even veterans, and it's perpetuated, unfortunately, that so many veterans like will go, why can't you handle this? Why aren't you handling this? Figured out. But all they're still living is a disassociated life from the military. They're still wearing the skulls and crossbones. They're still, everything in their business is camouflage. They're still going to the seeing their buddies and stuff. And they still aren't totally disassociated from it. Yeah. Right. But there's so many of us that, man, my identity is not in the Navy. That's not who I am. That's not my being. My name, my title, none of that is who I am. I have a given name as a child. That's not who I am. I appreciate my family name, but being a former SEAL gives me zero emotional credibility. None. It's not who I am. And when I finally admitted that, I was like, oh my God, what am I? If I can't look back at my past and find emotional support in things that don't matter, like, whoa, it blew my mind. I was like, nobody cares about being a former. I played the saxophone in 6th grade. No one cares that I was a former saxophone player. In the same way that no one cares that I'm a former Navy SEAL. It gives me no value as a human. Zero. It's all memories that don't exist. None of it exists. It's not real. And I had nothing finite or tangible for me to associate to. When I had all these amazing people around me, family, friends, right? I had such a great future ahead of me, and I couldn't deal with that. I hadn't made that decision that there was some real value in who I am, not in what I thought I was or what people think. And what it really opened my eyes, and I couldn't deal with it. So I set everything up in place in my life, got lawyers involved and wills and this, that, and the other. And then faith. Like, I'm not talking church. I'm talking a real belief that there's something out there more meaningful than me. Pulled me off the floor of my bathroom when I was going to kill myself. And ever since then, and now, that's when the real challenge and the real journey began, because it's like you have all these memories of 11 years of combat memories and people and stress that still want to pull me back into what I anchored my own personal ideologies in, religion, my Democrat, Republican, am I a veteran, like all these things that just, they don't matter. And I don't want to devalue them for anyone, but they don't matter, right? Like, I have a son that doesn't care what I did for a living. I have a girlfriend that loves me for me. I have a mom, fortunately, and there's so many people that don't have parents that love them for who they are. A lot of people don't have that, and they're like a prisoner, like literally like a prisoner that has no one to come out to. Right. But I had all these people to come out to. And, that's what saved my life, was I really, really started thinking, it's like, oh, that whole former Navy SEAL thing is no value to me. And I had to get rid of it. And I'm still trying to get rid of it because, I'm still involved in trying to impact people that are going down that path. But man, it's not my purpose in this life.
What do you think your purpose is?
My purpose is to teach. Like, I'm here to teach. I'm blessed with the knowledge of physiology and anatomy. I'm blessed with the knowledge and the ability to transfer that information to people that want to self-improvement. Because I feel like, through our physical body, for me, my physical body, trying to teach and coach the physical body opens up that emotional state. Because if we say self-love and self-care, well, it's a very hard thing to wrap your heads around that, because it's not tangible. But physical self-love and self-care, not sex, none of that. Like, if you love what you put the food you put in your body, if you love the way that you interact with gravity and weights and resistance and the community involved in that, that is then the conduit for people to go, hey, I want better for my emotional state too. And for me to be able to speak to people that want that physical improvement gives me that conduit. Then when I recognize people that are struggling emotionally, going, hey, you love your physical body because it keeps you alive. It does these sort of things, but how are you doing emotionally? And then, then you can begin that dialogue with some people. And that's where I sit in this life.
When you got to that, to the abyss, if you will, when you were touching the other side and you were about to make that decision, you mentioned that faith kept you from going over the edge. What about faith? Like, do you think, if you could share a message of hope or something with people that are in that dark place where they're about to suck on a gun or whatever it's going to be, like, what was a real thing that kept you from doing it?
Well, I had some experiences that shaped my life. And like I said, I anchored my belief system in those. And, for me, it really literally pulled me off the ground was Jesus. And it has, again, this is not Christian. I do not believe in Christianity in the sense of what the churches perpetuate. I don't believe in going to church to perpetuate that idea. Do I believe in church and people congregating yeah, I do, but that's not my path. I believe that there is real evil in this world, real evil. And I believe that the men like me and women that are very similar to me in the regard, they need to walk that line of evil. They have to walk that line of evil to look it in the face, to keep it at bay, and to do the things that we do. And I believe that that's our armed forces. I believe that that's our law enforcement. I believe that's our firefighters. And I believe that, we really do have to understand that it's okay. The things that we have inside of us, the demons we have inside of us, the devil that we have inside of each one of us, the capacity to do true evil. It's a weird, twisted gift. And for me, I really realized that to do good for others, the first thing you have to do is do good for yourself. And that's not taught. That's not taught. It's like team gear, unit gear, team gear, then take care of yourself last. And that's necessary in our military. But in this world, in this tangible world, when you take that uniform off, you need to really seek love and care for yourself. And it was shown to me. It's like, hey, I'm truly, truly loved, right? Whatever that deep-seated faith, that belief. So the same reason why you put the uniform on, ask yourself, why I want to serve my country? No, why? Well, I wanted to do something bigger than myself. Why? It's I don't know. There's this feeling inside of me that just is compelled to care for others, protect others, and serve others. That same deep-seated love that you have for that is the love and care that you have for yourself. And there's more value in that than anything that this planet, this world, this being, this realm has to offer. It's love is the way. It truly is the way. And it's really, really hard for us soldiers, sailors, Marines, to really understand what that is, because it's never been taught to us. Never been taught to us, because it's considered weakness, and vulnerability is weakness. And it's this awful, awful subjective thing. It's not. It's beautiful. Kindness, caring, love, patience. All those things are subjective, and we come from a very objective driven world. Right. And we've got to understand that it's okay to cry. It's okay to just feel like it's your end, because there are people there that understand you. And that's what kept me going. It's I wasn't as alone as I thought I was. I was just feeling sorry for myself a little bit, and it was hard. It was real hard. Don't get me wrong. It nearly killed me. But I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful that I hit that bottom, because I could only look up. There's no more down. And I just had to look up, because damn it, I can't help anyone if I'm dead.
That's right. Well, you mentioned some conduits that helped you get to a place of wholeness again, and feeling like your emotional state was in a better place. What were some of those conduits that you used to kind of get you in a better state?
Yeah, there's a few. And I think they came in the right order for me. So that's one thing too, is By no means do I think that my way is the way. We all have a path. We all have a way to get there. And for me, it was a couple things. First thing, I immersed myself, for whatever reason, into people that knew how to communicate. Because that's one thing too, is I was not a good communicator. I was really good at giving direction. I was really good at giving concise, step processes. I was really good at that. But I wasn't good at listening, was not good at listening. So in a weird way, Joe Rogan, right, was one of the best listeners that I could learn from. And, you know, Jordan Peterson also was one of those people. Like, I started listening to people, hearing what they had to say. I started practicing listening to people at the grocery store without waiting for my turn to talk, just listening. Now, that was a step. Like, learning the podcast, I thought was super, super valuable, was because so many people that are running podcasts, such as yourself, that's a very difficult thing for somebody to do, because you want to engage and pull more out of them. And sometimes it's just got to steer them. But for me, I had to become a listener. Literature was a big one. C.S. Lewis, for me, was very, very valuable. Understanding how can someone be that articulate and that finite in their conversation. You know, Shakespeare is another one of them. I'm not saying going down this road, but, you know, for me, then I got involved, thankfully, into psychedelic medicine. That was a real eye-opener for me, because for so many of us, that dogma that's in us, that taught necessary dogma, and I'm going to reiterate, these are necessary dogmas that the military perpetuates. They're necessary. I believe that. And so this in no way is an antagonist of what the military teaches our men and women. But it's hard to look at yourself without judging yourself. If you're judging yourself, you can't really love yourself. And for me, the severity of my mental state, I use psychedelics to get outside of my head so I could look at myself figuratively and literally and not judge what I was seeing. I mean, there's a point I blacked out all of my mirrors in my house with grease pencils, because I couldn't even look at myself in the face.
Oh, wow.
You know, and so that was a huge step for me, but it had to be the psychedelic experience. The most important thing is set and setting. This is not something you casually do. This is not something you casually try. This is not something you try with people you don't really, really trust. You know, I was fortunate to be exposed to a veteran organization that does this for special operators, the Hero Hearts Project. The psychedelics were amazing, but the people are infinitely more amazing that are contributing to that organization. And then from there, it was more learning, right? For me, then it really became meditation. I'm just an infant in the world of meditation, but I will say that psychedelics are pretty awesome, pretty amazing. But some of the teachers like Eckhart Tolle, right? There's nothing in my life that I don't feel like I can manage without the understanding of that teacher, of meditation, what meditation has taught me and what it continues to teach me. And like I said, I am in no way a practitioner. Like, my girlfriend is such a great teacher in that world, and exposing me to things that I was so closed-minded about because I didn't like to be vulnerable. Like, it just felt weird, you know?
Yeah.
But man, like, we were talking the other day, and I said to her, I was like, well, you know, what's your biggest goal with the meditation piece? And she's like, to be the best student of meditation that I can be. And that, to me, is so profound, because our military veterans are really, really good students. They're really, really good at taking on information and growing and maturing themselves as soldiers, sailors, and Marines. And man, we really got to grow that compassion. We got to grow that love. We got to grow that what you really are in your heart. Meditation for me it's profound. It's changed me as a being, not just a human being, but as a being. It's changed me as a father. It's changed me as a son. And man, It has made me so consciously aware of my faults without self-judgment. I'm finally able to begin to have a healthy relationship with someone that really loves me. And that to me is right. And then on the spiritual side, like, man, like I know what love is, and it's awesome.
Yep. No, it's awesome. I did a podcast with a guy from the Heroics Heart Project, and I think it's so incredible that we're finally starting to wake up to the benefits of Mother Nature. You know, the benefits of some of the things that are out there, whether that be psilocybin, ayahuasca, MDMA, whatever it is that, you know, can help our veterans and help people that, not just veterans, but people that struggle with mental health in general. And I think we need to do more in that arena because it's long overdue. And there has been a stigma with all of that, you know, with a lot of people, myself included, you know, and in terms of suicide, I used to have this idea that, like, you know, oh, that's for weak-minded people. I'll never go down that road. Don't be a pussy. Just manage your shit and deal with it. And it wasn't until recently, and I think it's through meditation and through psilocybin use, that I woke up to the idea that the only reason I was projecting that way was because I was afraid of my own darkness.
Yes.
I was afraid of the fact that I could very easily go to that same place that those people were in. That scared the fuck out of me, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, that's it. Like, that's what all this comes from, is our own self-projection of our own insecurities.
Oh yeah.
That's it. Like, and it's, you know, whether you want to listen to Buddha or Jesus or whatever it may be, what it all comes down to is, that's what we're talking about. Like, the greatest of them all is loving your neighbor. But that's hard to do. And that's compassion. So from the Buddha side, right, the Buddhist, that's compassion. It's like, and it's, you know, you get to that point. It's like, how could I have compassion for people you really can't relate to, or their discovery? Like, you know, that's why I realized too, a lot of people, I lost friends because I was going through this point of introspection, that then they're afraid that I'm going to expose their own insecurities.
Yep.
And I get that. And that's not, again, not a point of judgment, but I lost every single friend I had, legitimately, plus minus about three.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of it because I was a jerk. And I know a lot of it was because my own introspection exposes their own insecurities.
Right.
And that's a real hard thing for humans to do. And that's where I think that's where that veteran rift happens. It's like, yes, we all have our own. Everyone has their own shit. Yeah. Deep stuff. Okay. But that is what makes you human. That is where we need to, it's so hard for us to find compassion in that, and trying to do that, like being angry. Like, my biggest thing was like driving in traffic. That's where my compassion didn't exist, you know? Right. And I just thought everyone was a bad driver, but that is where I attached my ideology into. It was an outward manifestation of my own inner static. And man, like, that's been a big thing for me, is like, hey, that's practice. Can I get in my truck, drive to the grocery store, and not run somebody off the road? I mean, literally run people. I used to run people off the road.
Right.
As stupid and as ignorant as I can't believe I say that, but it's true. And I'll own it. And that for me is real. And I know a lot of veterans out there are going, holy shit, I do the same thing. Yeah. Right? That is an outward extension of your own insecurities. And people don't like to hear that, because here's the deal. I've worked with and in professional sports for almost 20 years. There are no bigger egos on this planet than our veteran population. None. Zero. Because what they're going to infinitely default to, and I'm guilty of this, veterans will infinitely go, well, I serve my country, or I've killed people, blah, 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 blah. Awesome, man. And there are somebody out there that was bigger, badder, tougher, and meaner than you, and always will be. So that holds no weight to my ego anymore. And as long as we as veterans continue to perpetuate that idea, because here's why. The capacity for violence, the balance to that is love. I have found, and I'm certain you've seen it, is amazingly tough, strong, extraordinarily violent men and women that come from the law enforcement military world have the biggest hearts of anyone you've ever met. And you're like, that's my goal. if I had like a tangible physical expression or response that I get from the world, it's in, years from now, that when people look at me, right, that my outward being reflects my inward reflection. Because for 11, 16, 18 years, this long hair, this long beard, my body's 40% covered in tattoos, I lived the ideology of fear, and I tried to instill that in people. And now I'm trying my hardest, and it's a daily work for me so when people see me, they go, man, that dude's got a capacity for violence, but that dude will hug you before he hits you. And that, for me, is real value, because we got enough tough guys. We got enough dudes with beards and all this bravado that want to bang their chest. Well, I was the one leading the charge. I was the most arrogant, self-considerate, I was self-righteous in every way. And that's something I fight every single day, because I was really, really well conditioned for that. And that isn't who I am. That's not who I want to be. That's not who I want my son to emulate.
Right. It's funny. I went to this men's retreat, and I was very apprehensive about going, because I knew I was going to be around people that I normally have not been subjected to. They're very much into the yoga community and meditation and ayahuasca ceremonies and things that I hadn't been exposed to yet. And I was nervous as hell, man. I didn't know what I was gonna meet when I got there. I had an exit strategy. I had people ready to pick me up and get me the hell out of there if it sucked really bad. And I just wasn't in the right headspace going. And then I got there, and it was such an amazing experience to witness and experience so much love and compassion and non-judgment from every single person in the group. They didn't give a shit about my tattoos. They didn't care about my military clothing that I had on. They didn't care about any of that. They cared about me as a person, as an individual. And when I came back from that retreat, I cried for probably 3 weeks straight after I got back. It was like this container, the top had been taken off of it, and all of this stuff was just coming up to the surface that I hadn't ever dealt with before. And it wasn't like a crybaby thing. It was more like I was feeling again. And I was telling my wife, I was like, I had forgot what it felt like to feel. I was always up here. I was always in my brain, like thinking and analyzing, but I was never truly feeling. And it was like I was in my own prison. I was trapped. And one of the first things I did when I got home was I got rid of all my military type clothing. And she's like, why are you doing that? I was like, I'm going to stick to just plain black t-shirts, white t-shirts. Like, I don't want any affiliation. I don't want to put on a front for anybody. You know what I mean? And you said it perfectly, where I wanted to put the fear in people. You know what I mean? Where it's like, don't fuck with me, stay away from me. You know what I mean? I'm connected to certain people, and I'm capable of doing certain things. And it was all ego. It was all ego driven and fear based and insecurity based. And I'm finally at that place now where it's like, why would any harm come my way? I mean, if it does, I'll meet it how I need to. But why would it?
Like, that's the thing, as a military veteran, the military has taught you to be a light switch. I'm a light switch away from being the Hulk. Right. I'm extraordinarily well trained in every way, and I know that. Like, it really is the Sun Tzu art of war type mentality. It's like, again, in the cliche, it's like, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. And it's a really, 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 like, when you're aware, truly aware of that idea, the thing is the thoughts that run through your brain are not who you are. It's not like it's what a great thing I have learned is the poison are my thoughts, and trying to shut that down. Trying to not think is one of those things that's like, how could I not think? No, like, you need to feel. Like, why are you thinking that way? Like, if you stop and think, right? If you stop and quiet yourself, thoughts run through your head. Who's saying it? It's the ego. Whose thoughts? Like, we get down this rabbit trail, and we think that our thoughts are what's going to resolve our issues in the future. Life does not happen in the future. Life doesn't happen in the past. Life never doesn't happen in the now. We're like, yeah, Jeff, but the future. Well, when you're in the future, it'll be now. Why are we attaching our brain, our thought process, to something that does not exist? We perpetuate anxiety. We perpetuate fear of something that does not exist. And we go, well, yeah, Jeff, but I have a bill to pay and I have to be there. It's like, so you're just not going to pay the bill and not show up on time? You're going to react in the now. So why are we attaching ourselves, our anxiety to the things that you know you're going to fix, you're going to resolve? And if a problem does come up, if someone tries to mug you or you get in a fight, you're dealing with it in the now. You're not going to deal with it in the future. You won't be able to deal with it in the past. I had a really amazing conversation with Mitch Aguiar the other night. And he had his last fight he did, it was a rematch. He got knocked out the match prior, 18 months. And he said to him, so he was talking to her, he was in the kitchen. It was really, really amazing. And so this is real mindset. Like, this is real evolution in human consciousness is what he's about. He told us. It was brilliant. It was beautiful. And he's like, yeah, I walked about right before I walked out to fight. Music came on. And he goes, I had to stop myself. And he goes, why am I so fucking worried? He goes, in 20 minutes, none of this is going to matter.
Wow.
None of it.
Wow.
He goes, in 20 minutes, win or lose, it doesn't matter. And he's like, fuck it. And he's like, I'm just going to go have fun. And he went out there, and I've seen him fight a lot. I've never seen him fight that calculated and that concise and that well.
Oh, yeah.
He was in such control. And I was like, that's human evolution. For someone to go, you know what? My feelings right now do not define me. It doesn't matter. Because if I've prepared, and the military has prepared us so well to handle stress, many of us, we fail to deal with it because we just let it bottle up. We think the ideology of what we were as a former defines us as the now. At no point in my life will being a former Navy SEAL ever benefit me. Ever, ever, ever. And that is awesome. That's not to take away what I've learned that's gotten me to this point. But if Jesus, it was good enough for Jesus to be called a teacher, it was good enough for me.
I love it, man. That just gave me the chills, you sharing that story about Mitch, because it's so true how a lot of us are guilty of that, man. Being like where you're projecting into the future, and like you said, 20 minutes from now, this isn't going to matter. It won't matter anymore. It's like, wow, that's powerful stuff. Yeah, that's
going to be
awesome.
behind you.
Yeah.
If you prepared for it, go.
For sure. In terms of social media, do you think it's a detriment to mental health, or do you think it's beneficial to mental health, and why?
I don't think it's a help. I think that detriment is a decision once we've learned. I think that, like anything else, it's the same. You could use the same argument about guns. Are guns bad? Or is it the choices that some very few people decide to use them, right? Yeah. Creates horrific action. All comes down to the being, all comes down to the human. I would like to think that I'm learning how to use social media to a benefit of others. The platform in and of itself can be very beneficial. I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that the proprietors of these social media platforms, that's what they intended them to be. And quite honest, I believe that they are going farther and farther away from that to ensure that you cannot perpetuate real, truthful ideas among them. Right. Which is why I think that owning your own social media platform or a website, having a place, a physical location, right? It's like meditation is a really amazing thing, and you can learn some pieces, listening to Headspace or going to YouTube and hearing what people have to say. But when you're around that environment like you experienced, what a difference. Like, why? You can feel people's energy and love. Like, certainly the way that we communicate, it's going to be very evident that you and I know each other to capacity and trust each other to a certain capacity to share these ideas so transparently.
Right.
But if you put Josh and I in the same room with 5 or 6 other mindful people, you'll really feel it. And that's a lot of part people too. You see the ideology in the military is like you put a bunch of like-minded dudes that want to go eat meat and go kill some bad guys. Oh, it's tangible. It's super tangible. It's intoxicating. It's beautiful in its own right. Yep. But that can't be sustained. The human psyche is not made to live in that state of stress unless, like the samurais, we're able to reintegrate these human beings back into a society and culture that really, really matters and what is, right? The war, the fighting, the combat that I experience is not my is anymore. I am tasked with teaching other people to manage it physically and emotionally. And that is my path. And I think that is where us veterans need to find real love and compassion in that regard, and not still wear the uniform that we are no longer equipped or asked to wear. That's not who we are as veterans. The veteran population is magnificent. It's time that we start carrying the weight of what a veteran really means, because we're not service members anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, myself included, our identity was largely attached to being a military member, being a veteran. And then when you get out, you kind of lose that sense of identity. And I think for a lot of people, you feel kind of lost. I felt lost for sure when I got out. Like, I didn't know who to relate to. Like, nobody was going to understand, like, the camaraderie and the loyalty and the, like, just the amount of, like, togetherness that you have when you're with your brothers and sisters in arms. And when you get out, you're looking for that. So then you end up getting funneled back into the same kind of shit you were just in, and you never really, you never evolve. And, when I changed the name of my podcast to Getting Real, a lot of that was because of some of the emotional and spiritual work I was doing. But then I had to call into, like, I need to go back to the original. That was my creation, and I can make it whatever I want it to be. Yeah. But I do have a strong calling to cater to the veteran community in a positive way, not to perpetuate this macho bravado, type A nonsense, ego-driven mumbo. I'm not into that anymore. Like, I want to love one another and help each other become the best versions of ourselves. And how I do that, I'm not really sure yet. And I think part of it is by doing these kind of podcasts with people who understand and are on the same level and get it, and trying to perpetuate the same thing. It becomes like a ripple effect that goes out into the world. So, in terms of social media, I'm kind of on the fence with it. I think it's up to the user if it's a positive or negative experience, I think. But a large part of my life, especially recently in the last, like, I'd say year, I was spending a lot of time feeling like the best days were behind us. And I was like, wow, like, life was just so much more simple before. Like, I didn't have a profile. I didn't have, like, these, like, inauthentic connections with people through a computer or a phone. It's like I actually would go and meet with people and talk with them. And so I'm on a mission to, like, really try to reestablish some of those connections in person. That's partially why I did the podcast in person with all of my guests until this coronavirus hit. I had to change course, but it's my hope to reestablish some of those real human connections, not just fake social media connections,
Yeah. And that's hard because, social media does draw us in.
Yeah.
And then what do we do with the connections? And I think that's the fine line for sure.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody that's at their rock bottom? If you could give any advice to somebody that's struggling, that doesn't know where to go, where to turn, they feel like they've probably, like kind of how you felt, where there's nowhere to go. There was nowhere to, nobody was there to help. No one gave a darn. Well, what about the people that are at their rock bottom? What's the best? I mean, how do we stop some of these senseless suicides? What's a good way that we can get past some of these and make a bigger difference and bigger impact?
Yeah, I know it's so different for everyone. That would be kind of like not the answer, but needs to be said, because again, my process was mine. My life experiences created the ego that I had to deal with, and I think that's the point. Is if any of you veterans for a moment think that this process begins with someone else's cliche bullshit, you're really mistaken. Like, you need to own it, right, to change it. And if you think that someone's kindness, someone's word, any of that is going to be this amazing catalyst for change and rejuvenation, you're missing the whole point. This world is not here to make you happy. This world is here to make you aware of it so you can be happy. And that's the problem. People always are thinking, in the future, I'll have attained this. And in the future, I will possess this. In the future, I will acquire this in a relationship, in something tangible, a car, a house, a title, right? A business. You have it right now. Right now. Whether you become a lawyer, a doctor, a Navy SEAL, a professional athlete, you weren't born that way. Your being isn't going to change, right? The who you are, the internal who, not the name, not the title, that's for you to decide. That's for you to shape. And a title isn't going to change that, right? But what is going to change that? Success does not breed success. Suffering does, right? What a really narcissistic thing for me to say, but your suffering is your salvation. And no one can take that from you. But if you let that suffering define you, right? And that's what the people do too, because you mentioned feeling. Suffering is the only place that we tend to find feelings, right? We find our anger there. We find our internal Hulk, right? We find our ability to feel real in the sense of tangible anger, self-loathing, pity, sorrow. And then we begin to seek these things that temporarily, like guilty, right? Sex, buying things, seeking friends that don't really care about you, right? These very short-lived things. And if you stop and you're on your knees and you realize that you're bottom and you analyze the people that are in your circle, and you got to understand that's your fault. You put yourself there, and who's going to get you out? Not me, not Josh, right? Very much a higher powers there have been kicking you in the ass all this time you may have been ignoring, but it's you. And that is why myself, that is why Josh, that is why so many veterans and other people that have hit bottom have found their way out, because it came down to them, because they finally okay, I got to cut these people away because they're a leech. Maybe you're the leech, right? I've got to find things that make me feel whole, right? It's not Amazon shopping, guilty. It's not having multiple sexual partners, guilty of that. It's not drug abuse, guilty of that. I was finding these really, really flimsy, crappy, terrible, awful, evil things to fulfill this ego short-term. It's a long fight, but I'm telling you right now, I've never felt better in my whole life. And I'm so thankful for hitting bottom. So this is going to sound stupid, but when you're at bottom, you just say thank you, because you have found a place where you can actually plant a seed and make change. Because before that, you were just going to keep making excuses. You're going to keep covering it up with alcohol, with sex, with whatever it may be. Okay? Be thankful you hit bottom, because now you actually have only one direction to go. And everything after that is self-rejuvenation.
That's awesome, man. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think a lot of people that hit that rock bottom feel that they got to a place where nobody cares. And I hope that my message and the message of my guest, you can see that there are people here that care, that genuinely care, that you can reach out to. Like, I put my personal number on my Instagram. I don't care if people call me. Call me. I may not always answer, but I'm always available, and it's important to me. It's something I'm passionate about. The other thing that you mentioned was using alcohol. And I'm passionate about that, because I think alcohol plays a huge role in mental health for the negative. It's a depressant. And when you're in a bad fucking place, the last thing you should be doing is drinking. And I don't want to be a preacher sober guy, go around and chastise people for drinking. That's not my intent at all. But I do want people to understand that it's not doing yourself any favors. And if you're trying to get to the best place that you need to be, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that's probably one of the first things that needs to go, because it's a huge checkout. It takes away your ability to feel. You're not feeling anything when you're drunk, and that was one of my biggest wake up calls, was I'm using this as a total checkout. I don't want to deal with my social anxiety. I don't want to deal with being around people. So I'll just get drunk and then I don't have to feel. I'll just lubricate myself. When I took that away, it was scary at first, for sure. It's like now I'm having to people with nothing to lubricate me with.
No skills.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And it was tough. And I tell people that when they ask me about getting sober, I'm like, listen, it's not going to be easy. You're going to confront your demons head on because you have nothing shielding you from it now. And it's going to be tough at first, but one day at a time, man. One day at a time. And I think that, I don't know with Rory's story, I don't know if he was intoxicated when he took his life, but I think if they did a study, they would find that a lot of these people that are taking their lives are probably intoxicated in one way or another, whether it be through alcohol or drugs. And it needs to stop, and I just don't know. I wish I had the silver bullet, the answer to stop this senseless stuff, but unfortunately I don't. So I'm just going to do what I can to spread a good message.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. What's the best way for people to connect with you, Jeff?
I have a social media platform, and I'm not super active on it for the kind of the reasons we laid out. It's not real. My social media platform is only a place for me to advertise where and what I teach. That's really what it is. I have a website, performancefirustus.com. If you have training questions, those get answered if you email that. With this Corona nonsense that's going around and our inability to kind of really physically interact with a lot of people here in the short term, with my new facility that'll be opening up for training, for teaching. Really, it's a teaching facility. It's not a gym. It's nothing like that. There'll be a lot more opportunity for interaction with me in person, and that's my goal, right? And what the future holds, I don't know, but I know that it's going to be awesome because I've been blessed with a lot of things. And one of the biggest blessings that I have are the people that come and want to learn. And again, it's one of those things that, if you reach out to social media and you have a real issue, whether it's suicide or those sort of things, social media is definitely not a platform to resolve those issues. I think that this podcast is probably the closest thing that I've ever offered to real advice. That's thought out. It's not ego driven. And I think that finding people that really care about you is a lot harder than it sounds potentially. But I guess, when it comes to being alone, that's one of the greatest teachers too. Like being really, really alone is a great teacher because I think we're pretty social animals. And being alone lets you know that like this is not what I want to. I don't want to have my one-man island because I can order food and any package I want delivered to my house. And I'm here to tell you that from my personal experience, try to get outside your comfort zone a little bit and seek refuge outside of the veteran population. Seek refuge outside the military, not to negate it, not to get away from it, but to understand that, especially for the active duty population, that they're privy to that information, folks. That's what they're meant to do. Let them do that. The veteran population, many of us are still wandering, trying to figure stuff out. Find people that have a creative mind, musicians, artists, certain things like that. What is it deep down inside of you that you think is creative? Right? And find that reading, literature, whatever it may be. Root yourself into something that, even if it's short-lived, right? Try it out. That's my advice. But I know the question was where to find me on social media, but I don't. It's interesting to say this. I just got an email yesterday, as a matter of fact, about, hey, is somebody in your team a life coach? And I just dropped my head when Catherine, my amazing girlfriend, read that to me. And she's like, and I just said, man, we have really fallen short as veterans, really fallen short if the people think that being a former Navy SEAL qualifies them or any Navy SEAL formerly to be a life coach. We, as veterans, have failed you if you think that myself or any former Navy SEAL is qualified for this. It's sad that we've put ourselves up, me included, we've put ourselves on this mountaintop of untouchable. It's disgusting. And I'm really, really sorry, really, really, really deeply, empathetically sorry that we have misled you as former SEALs, because that is not what we're here for. We are much better than that, and I'm sorry.
And I'm confident, Jeff, that you're definitely gonna leave this world much better than you found it. I've loved watching your journey, so through social media and by meeting you in person and having you on the podcast before. You could see the transition. You could feel it. It's palpable. I mean, even just being through Zoom, it's like I can see the difference in you. I can feel the difference in you, even the way you're speaking. And it's a true testament to what's possible. It's a true testament to, like, if you put your mind to it, it's like there was a book that I read when I first started going down this rabbit hole. I'm sure you've probably read it. James Allen, As a Man Thinketh. Mm-hmm. And incredible book, man. It really kind of tells you, like, we create our own realities. And a lot of that is like through our thoughts, a lot of that who we're associating with, and kind of where we're spending our headspace and our time. What's a good book that you could recommend for people in terms of mental health that can help, or that helped you?
The most important book I've ever read, period, hands down, without question, is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Great book.
I think that if you as a human, as a being, can navigate your way through that book without judging yourself, be patient with yourself when you go through that. It's a very short read. This is not a self-help book, folks. This is not a self-help book. This is we're talking human evolution, in my opinion. This is the most profound piece of literature outside of C.S. Lewis's Case for Christ, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And then we have one I cannot wait to dig into, and I can't believe I have not dug into Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, that's awesome.
That to me is evolution, right? You want to talk about compassion. It just gives me chills thinking about it. And to understand humanity a little bit better, understand yourself a little bit better, we need to dive in and take some responsibility for ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, I'm incredibly thankful for you. Thank you so much for being willing to come on here and share your truth. And I really, truly hope that our paths cross again soon in the future, man.
You betcha. Well, yeah. Without a doubt, we'll do it.
All right, brother. We'll be seeing you soon. Thank you so much.
Be well.
All right, brother. You too.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.